Hey guys, come on in. John Carver over here. Come on in. Come on in. I want to share some thoughts with you today on a lesson for survival. Again, a lesson for survival. I'm a great fan of Bear Grylls. Bear Grylls is a guy on TV who is a man's man. He goes into these wilderness places. He was part of the British Armed Forces, and this guy can do just about anything, I think. And I read a story about him some few years back. He says a boy of 9 lost in the wilderness for 24 hours used some survival tips from Bear Grylls. So Grayson Wynn knew he had to find a shelter for the night to conserve his energy and, if possible, leave clues for searchers, thanks to watching British Adventurers TV show. He ripped up his yellow jacket and tied the pieces to trees, and just he has seen on this show called Man vs. Wild. If you haven't seen the show, go look it up online. It's a really, really cool show. So born survivor Grayson Wynn in the back of an ambulance after spending nearly a day lost in this dense forest. So he realized that, he found them. He found the guy, these rescuers did, and he had gone fishing but was able to survive as a result of learning some techniques from Bear Grylls. His first words when reunited with his family was "Happy birthday." So he said, "I was really scared, but Man vs. Wild tells you how to survive in different terrains." And his father added, he was shocked, of course. He said the next thing he recognized from the show, regardless of circumstances you're in, is that you're capable of surviving. Now, I have to tell you flat out that some days you don't feel like you can survive at the moment because of what you're going through, because of what life has handed you and said, now deal with it. I'll tell you firsthand, that is not something that I enjoy going through. I would suggest that you and I don't enjoy going through that too. But going through difficult times at times is part of life. In fact, our stress comes because we're not in the moment but worried about the future complications. How many times haven't you gone through situations in your life and you're looking so far in the distance about what could be and what might be that you don't realize what's going on in front of you at the moment, meaning you fall over dollars to get the pennies, somebody told me recently. Now, there's countless of people, probably, I don't know, maybe not millions, but certainly thousands of people for centuries who've gotten stuck when faced with opportunities because they're worried about sometimes the negative implications because of their actions. In fact, some people call it analysis paralysis. They get so stuck in the details of their decisions, they don't make a decision because they're stuck in the details of the decision. So then that paralyzes their outcome. That it paralyzes what they're trying to do. I read a story one time. It says, "At sea, I'm reminded of my insignificance. Of all men's insignificance, it's a wonderful feeling to be so humbled." Stephen Callahan sailed out from the Canary Islands on a small slope he built himself. 6 days later on his trip, the boat sank due to damage from a collision with an unknown object at night. He later said that he suspected the object was a whale. He escaped from the boat and onto a life raft that measured about 6 feet across. And then he managed to survive his rescue 76 days later. He was faced with the sharks. He was faced with sunburn and raft punctures and physical deterioration and mental agony. For food, you see, he speared fish and captured birds and barnacles, and he lost a third of his weight during this storm. And when his raft formed a leak, he managed to keep it afloat for 33 days until his rescue. He said, don't wait until everything is just right, because it'll never be perfect. Think about that. You and I sometimes are tempted to wait until everything is just right when nothing is really ever just right. You stop and think about it. Life is not that way at all. In fact, some people have said that you need to get started even before it even resembles looking right in order to get where you're trying to get to in life. T. Harv Eker wrote, "Successful people have fear." Again, successful people have fear. Successful people have doubts. And successful people have worries. But they don't let these feelings stop them. You know how feelings can literally stop you in your tracks? I'm a perfect example of it because I tend to be a feeling guy, meaning that my emotions try to and successfully rule my life many, many days. Now, is it easy to do? Is it something that you have to consciously remember to do? I would suggest yes. You see, our stress comes because we're not in the moment, but rather in the future worrying about the implications of our choices. And I get that's a big part of wisdom. That is to think through things, to think through the process of things that you're going to do and why you're going to do it. But I think sometimes you and I just need to jump off the diving board. I can remember in fourth grade, I was in Lansdowne Elementary School in Maryland, and I was terrified of swimming. I was terrified of drowning, to be blunt. I don't know why. Well, I think I know why, but that's another sermon for another day. And I was afraid I was going to drown. And as part of the schooling, everybody went to the YMCA and took swimming classes. Now, there were obviously some kids in the class that knew how to swim, and there were others of us who did not know how to swim. Well, the teacher would take us to these classes, and can't remember how long we were there, an hour maybe. And the teacher would, in my case, they would strap this styrofoam belt around me with these little, I can't even describe them, little square things of styrofoam to keep me from sinking because I was so terrified I was going to drown. So they put the things around me to make sure that I wouldn't drown. But I was still terrified I would cry. I was, again, 9 years old. Cried my eyes out. I did not want to be there at that moment. I was terrified, I cannot tell you, because I thought that even with these white little styrofoam things that I was going to drown anyway. I was going to die that day before I couldn't even go back home again because I was going to fail. I was going to go into the water and not come back up again. So I really thought for sure that I was going to go under. And I think sometimes you and I have to realize that sometimes we overanalyze things too much. Again, we overanalyze things too much. Our stress comes from because we're not in the moment, but rather worried about the future implications of our choices. I think you and I have to realize that sometimes you don't have time to fear what may happen. You have to either do it or you don't. I read a story one time. It says, when the wind's howling that hard, it's picking up spray right off the top of the water. There's so much spray you can hardly see anything, the story said. It's like being in a blizzard. In 1983, Tammy Oldham Ashford and her boyfriend Richard Sharp were on a 44-foot sailboat. They were en route to San Diego from Tahiti when disaster struck. They were battered by a Category 4 hurricane. Waves were as high as 50 feet and winds were fierce, blowing more than 160 miles an hour. The boat capsized and Ashcraft was knocked out below deck. She regained consciousness 27 hours later and discovered Sharp was missing. Alone at sea and mourning her boyfriend, things seemed hopeless. However, Ashcraft fought to survive. She used navigation by the stars and to plot her way to Hawaii some 1,500 miles later. She rationed food and cobbled together a mast and a sail, and she finally reached the harbor 41 days later.